Matthews here, and if you are a serious buyer, you're going to want to get prepared before you start looking at houses. You want to know what to avoid and questions to ask. 9 buyer mistakes. The first one is rushing. This can be avoided even if it is a hot seller's market. You do have to use a plan to avoid feeling rushed, and having a scorecard to grade homes will make decisions easier. More on that later. The biggest thing is mindset. You want to be mentally prepared to make quick decisions if needed. Here's what you don't want to do. You do not want to wait for competition. Sometimes people tell me, well, let me know if anybody else makes an offer. If you like it well enough to make an offer when someone else is after it, then why not make an offer and be the first and only offer, and the seller will likely accept it. Why wait until 2 other people are making offers and then you have to offer more? It doesn't make sense. So stalling and waiting too long, that was an illustration of that. It can be an issue even in a buyer's market, because while you're thinking things over, someone else is writing that offer. Another way that you could wait too long is waiting to save more money when interest rates are already low. You have to remember that you are buying a monthly payment, not a sticker price. Focus on a monthly payment that's going to be comfortable for you. Talk to your lender and have them calculate the loan amount rather than just going at some sticker price that's random. When rates are rising, you do not want to wait around too long to find a house, because you want to find a house and lock in that rate while they're still low. You cannot lock in a rate on a pre-approval, only when you have an accepted offer. And as I pointed out, thinking it over can cost you the house. It can be a form of self-sabotage, and having a scorecard helps to avoid that. Not using or having a scorecard, I've mentioned this a couple times. Having a scorecard is really essential to avoid confusion, especially if decisions are hard for you. It is personal. You are the one that is making it. It should be probably no more than 5 or 6 features that you want in a house, and you give them points according to how important they are to you, and then you use it when you go looking at houses. There are some people that are very decisive, so they don't need it, but it does help the majority of people. And when you're looking at a lot of houses in one tour, it's very useful to define how these houses compare, because they're going to get jumbled up in your mind. Looking at houses before you get pre-approved. This especially includes looking online. Many people overestimate what they can really afford, and it guarantees disappointment, tempts you to overspend, and it can really hurt you when you have expectations of something that's here, but you can afford something here. Some people actually underestimate what they can afford, and they look online and they don't like what they see, whereas if they knew that they could afford more, they probably would like those houses. Finally, sellers often don't let you in without a pre-approval anyway. Overextending yourself kind of relates to the previous point, and it's done when a higher price range looks more tempting. It's done when you ask for the absolute maximum amount that you can borrow, instead of sticking with the monthly payment and your comfort level and working backwards to arrive at the purchase price. And it doesn't allow for potential repairs, so that can really hurt you. Falling for lipstick on a pig, oh boy. This is when there's a wonderful interior, it has a wow factor, you can't believe the price, it's such a bargain, but there are structural concerns or actual defects that have not been addressed. Now, some people do flip houses, and I will just say that not every home flipper puts lipstick on a pig. If they have it priced pretty appropriately and it was structurally sound to begin with, that's not what I'm talking about. I'll tell you if I think it's lipstick on a pig. Making an unrealistic offer is mistake number 7. This is trying to lowball in a hot seller market. And by the way, when it is a super hot seller market, unless they're overpriced to begin with, That list price is kind of like the reserve price in an auction. You have to ask yourself, do you want a deal or a house? You can also offer too much as a way of getting attention on your offer and getting somebody to want to accept it. The question is, will it appraise at that super high price? I had sellers that rejected the highest offer because it had other conditions in it that they didn't like, and they said, we don't think this is going to appraise anyway. They took the next highest offer because it had terms in it that they liked better. So here's kind of a cartoon about that. What's more important, the house or the price? For the sake of, say, example, $30 a month more as your monthly payment, is it really worth giving up the house for $30 a month more? That's only like $1 a day extra. Not anticipating buyer's remorse. I want to tell you that everyone gets it. Even if you build your own house, as I did, you still second guess yourself in some way. But you want to avoid severe buyer's remorse, and you do that by not rushing, sticking to your scorecard, avoiding lipstick on a pig, and sticking to your price range, your comfort level as to the monthly payment. Not interviewing agents or not using a buyer's agent is another mistake. Buyer agency can really help you. Buying a home without an agent could cost more, take longer, and even create legal issues, and this is huge, with misunderstood contracts. So please use an agent. My duties as a buyer agent are to provide services fairly and honestly, provide reasonable skill and care, accurate information and advice on market conditions, to disclose all facts and especially material adverse facts. These are things that will affect the value, reduce structural integrity, or pose a health risk for occupants. Confidentiality, of course, is taken as a given. I will negotiate for you. I have a fiduciary duty to you, that is to look out for your financial best interest. I can research contacts of municipalities or people in departments that you need to talk to answer certain questions. I'm not going to call them and pass on their answer to you because you really have to get the information firsthand. It's like the game of telephone. If I get an answer and I pass it on to you, something could get lost. So that's why I will research their numbers and give them to you. I can do a video walkthrough for you with seller permission, of course. I can run a comparative market analysis and, of course, remain objective and up. Your next steps are to get a free automated MLS subscription. It will send listings to you as soon as they hit the market. You have to let me know what your requirements are as to price, location, and that kind of thing. And you do have to check your email every day, because if you check it a week later, that house will have an offer on it probably. And talk to your loan officer if you already have not done so. It's easy. You call me to get set up with this search. That's my phone number there. And that's it. Then you will have an action plan to follow to get you the home of your choice. And that's it for now. This is Emily Matthews here to help you with all your real estate needs. Don't forget to subscribe. It's the little icon with my head on it. Have a wonderful day.